Hello again everybody. Hello boys and girls. This week's story is called Mr. Happy. It's about a Mr. Man who was always very, very happy. Are you sitting comfortably? Then we can begin. On the other side of the world, where the sun shines hotter than here and where the trees are 100 feet tall, there is a country called Happy Land. As you might very well expect, everyone who lives in Happy Land is very, very happy. It's such a happy place that even the flowers are smiling in Happy Land. And as well as all the people being happy, all the animals are happy as well. If you've never seen a mouse smile, or a cat, or a dog, or even a worm smiling, go to Happy Land. This is a story about someone who lived there, and he was called Mr. Happy. Mr. Happy was yellow and round and very happy. He lived in a small cottage beside a lake at the foot of a mountain, close to a wood in Happy Land. One day, while Mr. Happy was out walking through the tall trees in the woods near his home, he came across something very, very extraordinary. In the trunk of a tree, there was a door. Not a big door, a small yellow door. "I wonder who lives here," said Mr. Happy, and he turned the handle of the door. It wasn't locked and it swung open quite easily. Just inside the small yellow door was a small winding staircase leading downwards. Mr. Happy squeezed his rather large body through the door and began to walk down the stairs. The stairs went round and round and down and down and round again. Finally, after a very long time, Mr. Happy reached the bottom of the staircase. He looked around and saw there in front of him another door, but this one was red. Mr. Happy knocked on the door. "Who's there?" said a voice. A bit of a sad voice. "Who's there?" Mr. Happy pushed open the red door, and there, sitting on a stool, was somebody who looked exactly like Mr. Happy, except he wasn't happy at all. In fact, he looked very sad. "Hello," said Mr. Happy. "I'm Mr. Happy." "How are you?" said the person who looked like Mr. Happy but wasn't. "Well, my name is Mr. Sad, and I'm the saddest person in the world." "Why are you sad?" said Mr. Happy. "Because I am," said Mr. Sad. "How would you like to be happy like me?" said Mr. Happy. "Oh, I'd give anything to be happy," said Mr. Sad, "but I'm so sad I don't think I could ever be happy," he said sadly. Mr. Happy made up his mind. "Follow me," he said. "Where are we going?" said Mr. Sad. "You'll see," said Mr. Happy, and out he went through the small red door. Mr. Sad didn't know what to say, but he followed Mr. Happy. Up and up and up and up the staircase, up and round until they came out of the yellow door into the wood. "Follow me," said Mr. Happy again, and off they went, back through the wood to Mr. Happy's house. Mr. Sad stayed in Mr. Happy's house for quite some time, and during that time the most remarkable thing happened. Because he was living in Happy Land, Mr. Sad ever so slowly stopped being sad and started to be happy. His mouth stopped turning down at the corners. And ever so slowly it started turning up at the corners. And suddenly Mr. Sad did something that he had never done in all his life. He smiled, and then he chuckled, which became a giggle, which became a laugh. Such a big, enormous laugh. And Mr. Happy was so surprised and happy that he started to laugh as well. And both of them laughed and laughed and laughed until their sides hurt and their eyes were watering. Mr. Sad and Mr. Happy laughed and laughed and laughed. They went outside and they were still laughing. And because they were laughing so much, everybody who saw them started laughing as well. Even the birds in the trees started to laugh at the thought of somebody called Mr. Sad who just couldn't stop laughing. And that, boys and girls, is really the end of the story, except to say that if you ever feel very sad like Mr. Sad, you know exactly what to do, don't you? Turn your mouth up at the corners. Go on, you can do it. That's the end of our story of Mr. Happy and his friend Mr. Sad. I hope you enjoyed it. You can join us next week for another story. Have fun. Bye.